what's up? This is Patrick. Welcome to episode 49 of the Double ETF podcast, Everything Except the Football. I hope you guys are doing great. So today, Mike Drew and Woody Meachum, we have 3 questions. No regular reviews this time. If you want to drop us a line, you can do so at EETFpod on Twitter or EETFpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. All right, so welcome everyone to episode 49 of the Double ETF podcast. So tonight we are doing something a little different. We are doing a few questions and a few specific topics as well, one of which might be a very brief discussion. So we will see how it goes. And tonight I have the pleasure of having Mike Drew. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Welcome back. And we also have Woody Meachum. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Patrick. How are you?
Good.
Oh, you just told us. I don't need to ask you that. I got to stop doing that.
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
It's like when you call the doctor and they go, "How you doing?" I go, "If I was doing fine, I wouldn't be calling you. Sorry."
Right.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, we will do a what we watched later this week. But for now, I had a few specific questions in mind. One of them might betray my age, but I wanted to have a conversation with you guys regarding DVD commentaries. So this seems to be a thing of the past now. I mean, I don't buy physical media anymore, but do you guys buy Blu-rays anymore?
I've never bought a Blu-ray.
Okay, well, there you go.
And I'm older than you, and I've never bought a Blu-ray.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I've bought Blu-rays and DVDs, but I think I own 2. But and it's just like 2 movies that I love as opposed to, buying stuff because I saw it. So no, I don't. Now with streaming and, takes up a lot less space. And if I ever move, it'll be a lot easier.
I used to have maybe 200 DVDs at some point. I wanted to try and start a, collection of some sort. And I just lost patience and lost interest, especially when you realize that they release new editions for no reason at all. So you're never done purchasing the same movie over and over,
Yeah, I bought a lot of DVDs before YouTube when a lot of like artists, musicians and stuff would release like, collections of their videos or a concert that I'd never seen. But now with YouTube and I just don't have any reason to, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's not really any point.
Yeah, similar boat that my wife's a librarian. So anything I ever wanted to watch, I just asked her, she'd bring it home. And
Nice.
We actually had a lot more videotapes. So I'm that old. I'm the videotape guy. And when my daughter was born in 98, we actually watched, I'll never forget, it was Michael with John Travolta on videotape because that's what the hospital had. And then we ended up donating all of our videotapes to that hospital because I knew I could get whatever I wanted.
That's the movie where he's an angel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not very good.
There was some good lines. There was a couple parts I liked.
Okay.
But not a great film, no.
So yeah, and eventually I just, gave them all away pretty much. Okay, so I don't want to turn this into a monologue, but I can tell you a little bit more about my favorite DVD tracks, commentary tracks. You could see it under different aspects. Like some were more informative than others. And I think it worked better for older movies. For example, I watched Citizen Kane for the first time. I must have been like 17 or 18. And I thought it was okay. But a few years later, I listened to the DVD track and it was the commentary track and it was Roger Ebert talking about the technical aspects of the movie. And, this was innovative because they did that and this, that way. And it had never been done before. And it gave me an entire new appreciation for that movie. And that was awesome. Honestly, it might be my favorite commentary track. I would say my second favorite was probably, and I don't want to turn this into like art house, artsy fartsy nerd party, Too late.
I'll bring it down
maybe?
when I talk about it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll bring it right
Okay.
down.
Okay. But there was a Kurosawa's film, The Seven Samurai. There was a Criterion DVD, and one of the tracks was from an expert on cinema and Japanese culture as well. And he explained the movie from top to bottom, technical aspects and aspects of Japanese society at the time. And that was amazing. If you can track it down, go right ahead. And maybe my third and last one. No, actually, I have two more. The third one would be one of the Fight Club commentary tracks. It was Brad Pitt with Edward Norton and Helena Bonham Carter, but she was recorded separately, and that was unfortunate, but still, interesting. And it was a good mix of anecdotes about the movie, technical stuff, and just the deeper message of the movie, if you like. That was amazing. And one of my favorites when it comes to, banter between the participants was the Escape from New York commentary with John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. They are longtime friends, and it was obvious just listening to them. You just picture them having a cold one and just trading stories and laughing at what was going on the screen, and how the shooting went and all that stuff. I'd say that was my top four, probably.
So which do you prefer, though? Do you prefer the actor-director watch-along or the more educational one like the Ebert and Seven Samurai one?
For older movies, I would prefer more informational and technical stuff. But a watch-along, that can be tricky because sometimes you can get stuck with someone just describing what's going on the screen, and that's the worst. I would say that probably the type of movie can make a difference, I'd say. I mean, I don't like giving that answer, but my answer would be it depends, basically.
Well, no, but it depends on the type of movie. So that, of course, makes sense.
Yeah. So you guys never had the chance or never bothered to explore that side of DVD buying?
It never struck me to do it. Because I even, like when you mentioned this topic a couple of days ago, I went through and looked for DVDs we had in the house. And just to see if I had any that had a commentary on it so I could sit down and go, oh, of course my favorite is this documentary about Tiger Stadium, but it didn't have anything. And so, I don't know, it just missed me because I've got an Xbox, which is a Blu-ray player. So I've got the ability to do it. When I get a movie, I watch it. I don't tend to rewatch the same thing over and over again. And it just never dawned on me to sit down and rewatch it with a commentary. I mean, the closest I've ever really gotten to something like this would be like Mystery Science Theater.
Okay.
It's kind of a commentary, or like Doug Benson does like a movie interruption show. There's a thing called Master Pancake down in Austin, Texas, where they do these. Kevin Smith, the director, has done them with a few of the Batman movies where he'll watch and give commentary, and you can kind of join them. So I've done more things like that than the actual produced ones, because I've heard of the Fight Club one that you're talking about. And then there's another one that I was looking up that, like, I want to say it was like a Tarantino or somebody like that, and he's hammered the entire time he's doing it or something. I don't want to say it's him. Don't sue me. But it's stuff like that. I mean, it could be fun. I just would have to be in the right mood to do it.
Tarantino would be a good guest for your commentary track for sure. The guy has, as we all know, he's got anecdotes until next week, and he's got an insane knowledge of all types of movies. Mike, what about you?
The only two that came to my mind were, so one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie of all time, is Trainspotting. And I remember there was a special edition that came out in 2003, 2004. I don't remember the exact year. And there was commentary with Danny Boyle and I believe Andrew McDonald, who was the producer. Ewan McGregor might have been there as well. And the only thing that I remember that stuck out about it, it was kind of nice in the sense that I remember they talked about some of the bonus scenes, like some of the scenes that had been cut. They talked about why it had been cut, what happened, and what have you. But the one thing I do really remember was, and I was so excited at the time, was that Irvine Welsh, who wrote the original novel, he had a book out that was kind of dubbed the unofficial sequel to Trainspotting called Porno.
Yes.
And Porno was a great book. Like I had read stuff that he had written after Trainspotting, and Like some of it I didn't care for, but I actually really liked Porno. And, some of the characters overlap, but it really is a whole brand new story. And it's not related to the drug use of the other ones and what have you. So in this commentary, when this deluxe edition got released, I don't remember, one of them said, we've just purchased the rights, the film rights for Porno. And I thought, yes, because if there's ever going to be a Trainspotting sequel, it will be awesome because the story's great. That is not what they did. so whatever, 12, 13 years later, when they released Trainspotting 2, in my opinion, it's a hot piece of garbage. It's just it's so disappointing, especially when they had this brilliant story in Porno, which had these new characters, but, tied in the old guard as much as they needed. And unfortunately, that's not where they went with the sequel. And when I joked that I was going to bring it down, the other one that I actually really liked, and I mentioned earlier that a lot of the DVDs I own, and I own a couple dozen, were normally music based. And being a bit of a Kiss nerd, when the Kissology series came out, I think there's 4 volumes. It was basically Gene and Paul, like you were saying with Kurt Russell and Carpenter, basically sitting there watching stuff and shooting the breeze about it and going, hey, remember this? And, or they would tell these little insights that you're like, oh, I didn't, being a Kiss nerd, it's like, oh, that's cool. Like you didn't know. That was really good. And especially when they did it with like Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, which is, I think, the start of the second Kissology volume, which is hilarious. And it's like one of the worst films ever. But them talking about it and how the initial concept was supposed to be like Star Wars meets Hard Day's Night. And you can imagine it's neither of them. That was great. But those are the only two. Like Woody, I mean, nothing else stands out for me. And I was never a huge collector. It was more about, like I said, it was pre-YouTube where, maybe that you had an artist where you hadn't seen all the videos, or they had a video that was released in Europe, but not here in North America. And you were like, okay, great. You finally had a copy of it. But that was really the extent of it for me.
I would tend to agree with you regarding Trainspotting 2. I don't think I disliked it as much as you did, but I thought it was still a disappointment because Trainspotting is probably in my definitely top 20, maybe top 10. One of my favorites as well.
And if you've never read Irvine Welsh as well, it's tricky. I have to be honest. The very first book I ever read of his was, I think it was Filth, because I actually read it. I saw Trainspotting before I started kind of go back to read stuff.
That was made into a movie as well, right?
It was with,
yes.
I can't think of his name. I think another Scottish guy.
Was it James McAvoy?
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah. It was okay. The book is really good. The movie was fine. But Trainspotting, yeah, again, the film is one of those rare cases for me where the film, I think, is actually better than the book. And when I read Porno before I had heard about this commentary, I remember thinking this reads like a script. Like will be the perfect adaptation if they go with a sequel. And then I heard that, I got so excited. And then, yeah, I don't know what happened. Studios, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know, honestly. I don't know either. But regarding that topic, it would probably be easy for like Amazon Prime or Netflix to add a couple of audio tracks to put commentaries there. Of course, my plea will be ignored, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm sure they could do it just by, like, they have all the different channels for different languages. That's all it would have to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same thing with closed caption and all that other stuff. The technology's there to do it, but per your point, will they?
And I'm sure somebody's screaming at their phone right now, like, they do! You don't know about this!
Yeah. On Hulu, you just go here!
But, I don't know. Yeah.
So, basically, you cannot say that you missed them, either of you.
Right. Yeah, I have.
No.
Yeah.
Also, I remember on some of the DVDs I used to have on the back, like bonus, commentary track and blah, blah, blah. And every time I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. I'll check it out, when I get around to it. And I never did for most of them, So that sucked. So yeah, RIP DVD commentaries, I suppose.
Well, I mean, it's almost like the watch-alongs now, right? I mean, there's people on YouTube who do, and podcasts who do watch-alongs. It's like, okay, hit play now.
Yeah. That's probably the new version of it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably some out there. I don't go to my
All right,
website for
that's
it.
like I mentioned the Kevin Smith one with the Batman.
Yeah. I forgot the exact URL, but I remember that there was a website with DVD commentaries ripped from the DVD themselves that you could download, only the audio track. And there was a shitload of them, hundreds. And I'm guessing that the site got taken down because that's kind of a tactical acquisition material right there. Okay, so yeah, that covers it for DVD commentaries. That was more than 2 minutes. So yeah,
All right.
we can give ourselves a gold star for this one. The next topic was international TV shows. Let's try and focus on that. Personally, I went with non-US and non-UK. So I don't know what you guys did, but we can start with Woody. What did you have in mind for this?
Well, so can I go Canada?
Sure.
You can.
Because that is
Yeah, exactly.
to me.
You can. You can. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just got quick ones for Canada. I'm a big Letterkenny and then Shoresy guy. So those Letterkenny, when I found that show, that came out of nowhere to me about 3 or 4 years ago. Or no, it was pre-pandemic, so it was 4 years ago. That's knocked me off. I know you have to judge everything by that. And then Shoresy, the comedy and the writing in that it's phenomenal. Schitt's Creek, which everybody loves out of Canada, is fantastic. And that was one of those I binged. I didn't watch it and didn't watch it. And then finally, when I binged it, it was right when it was ending. And so it was one of those, the line I told one of my cousins was, you got to experience this relationship for 4 years. I just did it in 4 weeks. And it really sucked when it ended because I really, really liked it. And then I want to say our good friend Ronnie Aces turned me on to Corner Gas.
Oh, yeah.
So I went back and watched all of Corner Gas, including the animated series and all that stuff. And what a nice, sweet, funny. I don't know a lot of Canadian celebrities, but I was able to pick out when I think it was Tragically Hip was in his garage. Stuff like that where I'm like, oh, I actually know who those guys are. So that was good. So those are my Canada ones. I'll put those over to the side now. The other ones that can't use UK. So
no, you can. I didn't, but you can.
Oh, you limit. Okay, sorry. Because I'm a Doctor Who guy, but I'm a 2005 on Doctor Who guy. So I'm a Chris Eccleston up. Tom Baker and all that stuff was on when I was a kid. I just couldn't get into it. But when the Eccleston stuff came out, that stuff grabbed me. And it was amazing. And then more recently, there's a show called Ragnarok that is out of, I think, Finland or Norway or Sweden.
Yep.
I can never remember which one. It's not Finland, but it's Norway or Sweden.
I think it's Norway, but let me look it up.
But it's a story of 2 kids and their mom move back to a town, and they gradually find out that the main character and his brother are Thor and Loki. And it's the way they play it out. There's 2 seasons of it. A third one's coming out, I think, very soon. I really liked it. And then the only other one I want to throw in that I've tried, and I was going to throw it out to you guys, is The Dark out of Germany.
Yep.
Or Dark. It's Dark.
Dark. Yes.
Dark. I tried to get into that one, but I couldn't.
Sorry, yep. Ragnarok is Norwegian, and it's on Netflix in the US. And Dark from Germany. Yep. Go ahead.
There was one that was highly recommended to me, but I couldn't get into it, so I didn't know if maybe it was on one of your guys' list.
Not me, and I've heard good things about it as well, but what I've heard was it got a little too complicated with the time jumps, and I don't think I would have the patience for that, to be honest. And that makes me a terrible audience member, I guess. But
my question is, are you watching these with subtitles or dubbed?
The Ragnarok is dubbed.
Oh, okay.
Dark was subtitled. I was watching subtitled. Oh, and then of course I'm missing the obvious ones of Squid Games, which was a lot of the Squid Games. Kingdom, which is another one that's out of South Korea, were also fantastic. And then, while this doesn't count, I've been getting into a lot of anime because my son is. And a lot of that is either dubbed or subtitled. And again, it's something we kind of bond over. And it's amazing now, the people in their 20s to 30s that know all of this anime stuff. And I can literally walk into a place and see somebody who's 30 and go, what anime are you watching right now? And they'll go, what? And they're going like, oh yeah, we just finished up Attack on Titan, the other night, and the new series is coming out. And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, because my son watches it, and I like it too. So there's too many of those to name, but that would be like its own category, is just anime. So those are some of the stuff I've been watching recently. Although the stuff I have been more for this show has been more of the American stuff.
All right. Regarding anime, I remember the first anime I watched was Ninja Scroll from 1993, I think. And another anime classic, it's Akira from 2000, I think.
Yep.
We are getting to the point that parents can tell their children about the anime they watched,
Well, see, and I'm an anime guy from like the 70s. So like I told my son, I'm like, have you ever seen Battle for the Planets or Star Blazers? And he's like, what are you talking about? And so there's Crunchyroll and, I'm going to blank it, Hive or something like that. Crunchyroll is where most of the really, really good stuff is. It's a subscription service that just has everything on it. Otherwise, I've been finding like online clips and stuff and showing it to them. And it's so bad. The stuff I watched when I was a kid compared to how it is now. But right to your point, there's like, I made him watch Akira. He wouldn't watch it and wouldn't watch it. I'm like, dude, like so much of the stuff you watch is based off of this.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Japanese cartoons when I was a kid, but for some reason, technically it was anime, but I don't think of it as anime.
Was Astro Boy anime?
Yes, it is considered that.
Is it? Okay. I wondered.
Actually, that's a good question. What makes Japanese cartoons from our youth? Technically, it is anime, but why don't we think of it as such?
For me, the term anime is new-ish to the culture. I would, right, when I was a kid, it was a cartoon.
Yep.
But because now that it's been saying, oh, it's out of Japan, then it's anime, because normally, I don't know if it's normally or not, my son was explaining this to me, is like a lot of anime is based on manga, which is the written version.
Okay.
And so he would normally just say anime is based off of manga. I go, but it does have to be? He goes, well, no, not really. I'm like, okay, well, then there's no rule. But I basically just think it's anything that's coming out of Japan is considered anime.
Okay.
I think there's an aesthetic to it as well. A lot of times, I'm not that well versed in it, but I know when I have kids asking me at work for manga books, I certainly see a lot of a similarity of the art between them. So, but it's funny you say this because I brought this up at the dinner table tonight, and I was, I wanted to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything when it came to me. And the first thing my son, who I think is younger, obviously younger than yours, Woody, but he's like, Pokemon. And I was like, so I told him I'd bring it up. So there it is.
Nice.
Well, yeah. And that's actually how my son got into it all, was Pokemon, like the video game back in the day on the Game Boy. And because of that, then he found out there was a show. And then he found out from that show, he found other shows. And so that was his entry into it as well. And that was, again, where I used to have a lot of inroads with kids because I could talk Pokemon with them.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. So that's it for your list, Woody?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Mike, what do you have in mind?
And it was like, back up. Mike's got a list.
Boy. Okay. Listen, strap in, people, because no, listen, I won't take forever, but I do have a bunch of honorable mentions, which I will just briefly mention.
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay. So as we probably know by now, I do watch a lot of UK, Australian, and I wouldn't consider Canadian titles as foreign because obviously I'm in Canada and Patrick, you and I are here, but I think I kind of went anything that wasn't American. That's how I kind of looked at it, just because they're so dominant, obviously. So Woody, I actually had Corner Gas on mine as well. It's the one Canadian title I put down. Not to say that Kim's Convenience and other titles aren't great, but my favorite of all of them is easily Corner Gas. Peter Kay, who's a British comedian, has had some brilliant comedy series. He had one called Car Share. He had one called Phoenix Nights. He's one of my favorite stand-ups as well. I love those shows. There's some Australian dramas I'll just mention quickly. Underbelly, if you've never seen Underbelly.
I saw that and it was great.
Yeah, so there's various series. There's one that's based on the Golden Mile, which is kind of like the nightclubs in Sydney back in the 80s and into the 90s. That series was brilliant. There's a series that's based on a crime family that kind of started in the 70s. They're all based on true stories. How true the actual results are, who knows? But Those shows are great. There's some later series, they became a little, I don't know. I kind of lost it at that point.
Do you know how many series there are total? I've seen 3.
I think there's 4 or 5, but then there was a bunch of one-off specials.
Okay.
And I think they actually did one recently. They did one in maybe before COVID, and it's a more modern one.
Okay. Because I think the 3rd series was in the 1920s.
That's right. That's where I started to kind of wane.
Yeah, it was all right, but it wasn't as good as the first 2.
The first 2 were brilliant. There's actually there was a Kiwi New Zealand crime, not that it was based on reality, but it was called Outrageous Fortune. I wasn't a huge fan of that show. That was on in the early 2000s. But up until about 2 years ago, so I think there was 4 or 5 series, there was a pre-show for Outrageous Fortune called West Side.
Okay.
And I think it's on Tubi in Canada. I think it's free to watch. And it is really well done, especially like the first 3 or 4 seasons. And like British and Australian shows, I think they're 8 to 10 episodes a season. So they were really good. Just looking at my list here, there was actually an Australian family drama. I wouldn't say it was for families, but about a family called Packed to the Rafters. And Prime brought out it ended a few years ago, ended about 7 or 8 years ago in Australia. And then Prime brought out a newer version with the same cast, basically, I think 2 years ago. And it was okay. But the original series I really liked. Rev is a great British comedy. If you've never seen it, the main actor's name is escaping me right now. Olivia Colman plays his wife, and it's about a reverend who ends up in this huge church in London, and the congregation is just this cast of characters, but it was brilliant. And Call My Agent. I'll go with that one as well.
Tom Hollander.
That's right. Brilliant. If you've never seen it, it's worth watching. I think there was 2 seasons. He's this reverend who's conflicted at times with like his relationship with God and wanting to be the best person he can be and help people, but not all the people in his parish make it easy. And it's really well done. I think it's kind of a detectorist type show. If you like detectorists, I think Rev isn't a far stretch from there. Those are my mentions.
Okay. That's on Apple TV in the US.
Oh, okay. Great. Worth checking out. Yeah, it might be on BritBox up here or something like that. I don't know.
I can check quickly.
Okay, my list. In no particular order. Well, I'll save my favorite I have one favorite that's very last. Sorry.
BritBox, yes. And you can buy it on Apple TV as well. And Google Play and whatever, but the streaming, it's in Canada, BritBox.
Yeah, and it's just a sweet show. Again, very similar. Not the same story as Detectives, but I think if you like one, you'll like the other. Okay, my top 5. I'll leave number 1, but 2 to 5 is just any order you want. In the UK, there is a music quiz show. It's actually on still right now because they brought it back a few years ago on Sky. But it used to be a BBC show. It's called Never Mind the Buzzcocks. There's been various hosts. Bill Bailey, who's another British comedian. Noel Felding, is that right? I could be wrong. They were like the team captains, and there would be all these musicians and celebrities and stuff that would come on and do this pop rock quiz. It was weekly. It was a lot of fun, especially for music geeks like myself. And there's actually there's actually an Australian, so I'm kind of making my list 6, equivalent that's called Spicks and Specs, which is hosted by Adam Hills, who's an Australian comedian who does a lot of stuff in Britain. Both a lot of fun if you're a music geek, and there's a lot of clips and a lot of episodes on YouTube if you're interested. There's an Australian comedy that's coming back this year. I'm so excited. It's called Utopia. It's also known as Dreamland, and it's about a fictitious government agency in Australia called the Nation Building Agency. I think it's NBA or something. And basically it was set up so it looked like the government was doing something. And they're in charge of like infrastructure. And it's basically the relationship between Canberra, which is the federal government, and what's actually happening on the ground. And it's hilarious because just some of the nonsense don't realize, I'm sure, that happens in politics. In Canada, a few years ago, we had a Canadian comedian named Rick Mercer,
Mhm.
And he did a lot of like political, but it wasn't a sitcom, but it was just like he would go and interview, or he would go to some place and talk to politicians, and it was funny. It was lighthearted. I think if you appreciate it, if you're Canadian and you appreciated that, I think you'll appreciate Utopia. And there's a new season coming out after like 5 years, so I'm very excited about that.
Okay. And also, you probably saw me react when you mentioned Utopia. I saw a show called Utopia, but it was a different show from 2013. I don't know if you remember that one. The synopsis is: the Utopia Experiments is a legendary graphic novel shrouded in mystery. When a group of strangers find themselves in possession of an original manuscript, their lives suddenly and brutally implode. And it was 2 seasons, I think. And it was amazing.
Okay. Well, this one, I think, like I said, when it was on Netflix here, it was called Dreamland, and that may have been why. Maybe there was a conflict between the titles.
That would be a good reason, because the one you're talking about, I've never seen.
I have to tell you, one of my favorite parts of one of the episodes was the guy who runs the office comes in one day and he's about to go make himself a coffee before he starts work. And he walks over and he sees there's this new coffee machine, and his PA comes running up to him and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm going to make a coffee." And she's like, "Have you been trained on this?" And he's like, "No." It's just like the nonsense that you have to deal with in the public sector, right? I will also say, I'm looking at my thing. So I'm also going to go with another British comedy. A lot of people will be surprised by this choice. It landed at the right time for me. The In-Betweeners, which is...
Love that. I love that.
So The In-Betweeners, just 4 friends, goes from private school to like a public school in the UK, ends up meeting 3 other kind of the outcasts of the school, like, you know, and they're in high school, whatever. And they actually made an American series, which was not very good for, I think, 1 season. But it's very crude. And I'm not normally a crude person, but I think it's just got this British charm to it. And it's just, you know, I think most of us anyway have, you know, remembered trying to talk to girls and,
Failing.
you know, or someone you fancy. Yeah. And failing miserably, or like, you know, just you have that one friend who's an idiot, and, you know, it's just all those relationships. And I love it. There's 2 movies as well. The first one, they go to Ibiza. It's pretty good. The second one, they go to Australia. It's not as good. It's just cool because it's set in Australia. But the show, brilliant. I loved it. And
hold on, before you move off of that one, though, hopefully this isn't on your list, but did you see Dairy Girls then?
I love Dairy Girls. Dairy Girls could have easily been on my list as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's the female version of In-Betweeners, I always thought.
Yeah, I would actually say that's classier, for lack of a better word.
Not as crude, right. Not as crude. Not as crude, but they're...
I mean, they have that one friend that's like boy crazy, and she brings everything down. But
right.
I can't think of, like, the one that had the earrings. That's how I can't remember. But yeah, Dairy Girls is fantastic, and if you've never seen it, it's amazing as well. Which leaves me, I believe, my 2 favorite shows, and 2 of my favorite shows of all time, actually. Arguably my favorite comedy, just tied with WKRP, is Only Fools and Horses, which is a British show with David Jason, and I'm so bad with names. Who played his brother? Anyway, it's a wonderful family kind of set in Peckham, which is like a suburb of London, not necessarily the nicest section of London, but they're a bit dodgy. They wheel and deal, like, to kind of stay alive. And it's really fun and very heartwarming. And I'm all about that. A lot of great lines, a lot of great relationships between family members, friends. And it's long done. I think they had a special in the early 2000s, but I think the show actually ended in the early 90s or the mid 90s. But brilliant. I think some of the comedy in it's timeless. And actually, I'm going outside of the UK and outside of Australia and outside of New Zealand for my final. Yeah, so I'm going to go a little international. Probably my favorite drama of all time, and I have mentioned it on here before, is The Bridge. So it's a Danish Nordic drama. The first episode, there's a body found on the bridge that separates Denmark and Sweden, and a cop from Denmark and a cop from Sweden have to solve it together. You know, we all know from other cop shows that other forces don't like each other, you know, other divisions, and we can't work with the feds on this one, you know, they'll hold stuff from us or whatever. brilliant. The main character, I believe she's the Swede, Saga. She's, the theory is that has Asperger's, and it's just the way it's written. It's just so beautiful, and I mean, for a murder, over a murder, it's unbelievable, and it's probably, in my opinion, the greatest drama of the last 20 years. But I'm sure I'm forgetting something as well, but that's the one I always think about. So
it's really good. I saw it as well. There were 4 seasons total.
Yep.
It's from 2011 in the US. You can stream it on something called Topic.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
I have no idea what that is, and I live here.
Oh.
On Plex as well, 2 seasons, and you can buy it on Amazon.
And there was an American remake. I never watched it.
Same.
But
no interest.
No.
Like, unless you really don't like subtitles, you have no reason to watch the remake of that,
Well, I mean, there was an Australian, one of the shows I probably mentioned this before. There was a great Australian dramedy called Rake, and they made an American version. Fox picked it up and made a network version with Greg Kinnear. And that was actually okay. It wasn't great, like in the sense that I had seen the Australian one first. I wonder if I had seen the American one before I'd seen the Australian one, if I'd liked because Greg Kinnear's good in it, and some of the plots kind of overlap. But overall, it was a similar show, but different. The Bridge, I would not want to spoil it. And I'm not saying the American one would, but the Danish one is so great.
Rake, the original version, that's the one with Richard Roxburgh.
Oh, Richard Roxburgh, yeah.
Roxburgh, yes.
Yeah.
Or Burrow something. He was in Mission Impossible too.
Yes. Yeah, and he's fantastic, this lovable rogue, and that's a great show as well if you've never seen it.
Might have been on Netflix at some point. I think that's where I saw it. And The Bridge in Canada, that seems to be difficult to find as well. So, unfortunately.
What's your term? Tactically acquired?
Yes. Yeah, you're going to need some tactical acquisitions for this. All right. My turn, I guess. Okay, so no UK, no Canada, no US, no Australia. That's it. No, I was going to say continental Europe, but not even that. So let's give it a whirl. I don't know if it qualifies. I think it was a co-production, but up there, I don't have a clear order, but I got to say Narcos. Here it says from Colombia. So I know the product was from Colombia, but I don't know if the TV series was. So, let's leave that in the air. Number 2 would be, okay, I'm biased, but Babylon Berlin from Germany. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It takes place in the late 1920s in Berlin. So everyone is struggling. It like the Big Depression hasn't hit yet, but it's like maybe 1926 or something. So there is still the aftermath of the First World War. And you have a homicide detective with massive PTSD from the war. And I think at the time, it was the most expensive German TV series ever made. And it shows. You see the money on the screen. You have a few scenes that are really crazy, and you have the the cars from the era, costumes, and all that. I thought it was excellent. Season 4 was released a few months ago, and I don't know if he is still involved, but at the beginning, one of the creators or co-creators was Tom Tykwer. He did Run Lola Run.
Mm-hmm.
Those a few years ago. And it's awesome. And in Canada, it's on Netflix, probably in the US as well. So Babylon Berlin, check it out. It's amazing.
Is it a Netflix show, or was it a show that was picked up by Netflix?
Yeah, it was picked up by Netflix because I think it was shown on the ARD, public TV in Germany first. And then it appeared on Netflix a few months later. Okay, so I have The Bridge on my list as well. So there you go. I would say number 4, Gomorrah from Italy. You probably heard of this. It shows the drug trade in Naples. And I've never been to Naples, but judging from that show, I think I would rather be in prison because they make that city look like an absolute dump. It's insane. So yeah, there you go. The series ended last year, I think 5 seasons total. It's really good. I mean, it's really grim in 5 seasons. 5 seasons, I don't remember anyone ever cracking a smile. So that gives you an idea. It's super bleak, but it's awesome. And it's inspired by a book from an Italian journalist, Roberto Saviano, who wrote a book about the mafia in Naples, and he had to go into hiding because everybody wanted him dead, basically. And I think he is still under witness protection, and that was like maybe 10 years ago or something. So yeah, go check it out. In the US, you can stream it on HBO Max, all 5 seasons. It's honestly excellent. And do you guys have any honorable mentions that maybe slipped your mind, or you're good for that topic? Or
Well, I love that you threw in the in-betweeners. I forgot it, so good on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I left. I left out the IT Crowd. I left out In the Long Run with Idris Elba. It was a fun show. Him and Bill Bailey. One of my favorite sitcoms is a Scottish show with 2 comedians who aged themselves called Still Game. That's on Netflix here in Canada. If you're not versed in thick Glaswegian accents, you might want to have subtitles on. There was a great UK detective show a couple years ago called No Offense. I think it was a Channel 4 show. And if you know Channel 4 in the UK, they're the ones that tend to try things that are maybe a little offbeat. And this was a little offbeat, but it was a lot of fun as well. Yeah, I mean, I could go on forever with UK stuff, and Cradle to the Grave, there was a BBC presenter named Danny. Oh, why am I forgetting his last name? Anyway, it's based on his life growing up in the 70s, and they only made 1 season of it. And there was supposed to be a second season, and it's brilliant. It's one of the few kind of period comedies that's a kind of a rare thing anyway, but it was really well done. And, the music's fantastic. The soundtrack to it just goes hand in hand. But yeah, I mean, I could probably keep going on and on and on, but I'll stop. So,
Woody, were you going to say something?
Things kept coming to mind while Mike was talking that I don't, because you've got and again, a lot of them are UK based. I was trying to come up with stuff that wasn't in the UK. I know I've dropped this before to you guys, but Alice in Borderlands, which is a Japanese show, is fantastic. So that I was also trying to steer away from Australia as well, but I think we're good on this one.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, like, if you have something brilliant come up, if it happens to be from the UK, that's okay.
All right. You can edit it in later.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, Mike, have you seen The Thick of It from Armando Iannucci, the guy who created Veep afterwards?
Yeah, it sounds familiar. You know what? It gets to the point now where there's so much, and I'm like, I think I have, but you'd have to give me a synopsis. I can't.
I mean, it's a few years old already, but there is Peter Capaldi in it. He is Malcolm Tucker, and Tom Hollander is in it as well for a few episodes.
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay,
yeah, it's good. I think they do those political, I don't want to say satire, but political comedies well, right? It's almost like Utopia or Dreamland in a sense. Like there's a bit of an overlap there. So,
and actually, if I had included American stuff on my list, I think honestly, the first few seasons of House of Cards were brilliant.
I loved the first season. Second season, I started to kind of go, and then by the third, I was out.
Yeah, same, Mike.
I think he becomes president at the end of the second.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens...
Where do you go from there?
Yeah, exactly. It became way less interesting.
Well, I mean, I think it was the second season that starts with the train, right?
No, that's in the first. I'm pretty sure
that's at the end of the first? It's near the end of the first, though, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I couldn't remember if it was the second started with that or the first ended with it. And I kind of thought, I'm not sure about that. But, the second series, it was okay. But the third series, I tuned out. I don't even think I watched more than 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah, I bailed afterwards. All right. So, okay. So that covers the international TV series. We have time. One more question. Yeah, you guys are good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So, okay, the next question was your favorite opening credits. There has to be a few that jump right into your mind. We can start with Woody.
Yeah. So mine happens to be most of them actually were like my top favorite shows, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Sorry, could be both movies or TV shows. If you have a top 5, you can mix it up as much as you want.
Yeah, the TV shows were more memorable to me. That was the part, because I did think through movies, and I don't know, it was just the TV shows that came to mind, because you said opening credits, and so that's kind of what I was thinking of. And right off the bat, my number one is Northern Exposure. Is just because I loved the show so much, and it was so weird. I mean, the music was just this quirky, country-ish style song, and then you've just got a giant moose walking down an abandoned street, and the first 5 series of it are some of my favorite ever. Once Paul Provenza comes on, the show kind of goes down, but it's literally, I had my wife, again, because my wife can get anything, she got me the first 5 series on DVD to watch, and I just checked it out and watched it, and I never skip the opening, even though, there's no words, there's nothing. The show always put me in such a good mood that just the reaction to it was just something that was just like, it calmed me right away, because I knew it was going to be a good, fun, stupid, wacky show. And so I loved that one. So that's my number one. Number 2 is MASH. So Suicide is Painless, all the clips of everybody running in. That's more a nostalgia one for me, because that was one back in the day when it was on. On Mondays, I could watch MASH 6 times a day because it was on reruns. There was 2 reruns before primetime started, 3 reruns before primetime started, then the actual show itself. So maybe it was 5, and then 2 after primetime.
Wow.
Just based on different, and this was broadcast. This wasn't cable. So I'm talking like early or late 70s, early 80s. And that was just a show like my brother and I would watch together, and our family would watch together. So that one, and the song Suicide is Painless, as a little kid going, what does that mean? And, oh, it's so trippy. And then you find out that the creator's son wrote the words, and they were just nonsense words. They had the song, and they just said, well, we need lyrics. And so this guy was like, okay, I'll write the lyrics. And so Suicide is Painless comes from nowhere. It's just some goofy thing.
Wow. Okay.
So there was that one. And then, of course, the obvious one is Cheers. That one is just, again, it's the nostalgia. It's the old-timey look of the opening credits with all the old kind of hand drawings. And the song is just killer. So those are kind of the big ones. But then I started going down the rabbit hole of just songs that how shows, this isn't a hot take or anything, but just you don't have those shows that have opening credits anymore. Or if they do, it's so easy to just hit the skip button now on so many things that you watch, that somebody can put a ton of work into it, but it's like, me. But there were so much, and plus now that you got to cut it down to 22 minutes for commercials, they're not going to spend that time on an opening credit. So those were my top 3 that I came up with.
Okay. Do you have any from movies?
See, the problem, I couldn't come up with any good ones that really struck me from an opening credits sequence. Come back to me on that one.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Because I tried to think of movies, I just couldn't come up with any good one.
Okay, because I looked for a couple lists just to, rattle my brain a little bit. And I think I might have a few good recommendations in there.
Okay, great.
All right. So, Mike, what do you have for us?
As I mentioned earlier, WKRP is one of my favorite shows of all time. That opening song, and the credits slightly changed as the seasons went on. In the pilot, it starts with somebody tuning the radio in the car, and changes and shows like the landscape of Cincinnati, a city I've never been to. And that theme song is
It's so much better than the downtown of Cincinnati.
There you go. I'll take your word for that.
I spent 6 months there.
Never again.
There you go. The Flintstones.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't think there's a cartoon where the opening, like you said, Woody, I mean, I've seen every episode at least 5 times, in my life. In Toronto, growing up, if you went home for lunch from school, that was on. And you'd watch it and you'd have your lunch. And I think anybody who kind of grew up in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, probably was in a similar boat to me. It was either that or Leave It to Beaver. And I'm not a huge Leave It to Beaver fan. It's okay, but the Flintstones for sure. And I'll stick with cartoons would be The Simpsons. What's Bart writing on the board? How much does Maggie cost? All these things, right? So I'll go with that. I'll say The American Office, not because so much of the theme song, but every opening, that cold opening of, Jim trying to pull a stunt on Dwight or what have you, and then going into that very short theme, where it's like quick cuts of all the characters. I'm going to go Phoenix Nights, which is a UK show. Literally, it's about 2 bars of chimes. That's it. And, it starts again with an opening scene of some sort, and then you hear that dun 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 dun. Anybody who knows the shows knows what I'm doing. It lasts for 10 seconds, and it's literally just somebody on like chime. I'm sure it's done on on the computer. But that being said, you hear it, you know what it is. And I think that's the way to go for me. And being Canadian, come on, if it's not Hockey Night in Canada on a Saturday, that theme song is absolutely iconic in this country, right? I mean, You don't even have to be a hockey fan and you know exactly what it is. So, and I love some of the montages they've done over the years where it's like the old calls from the 50s, 60s, what have you. It's not always modern. I love that when they kind of show that history piece. Mm-hmm. They don't always do that, but there have been times where they do, and I think that's brilliant as well. So,
yep, I couldn't agree more.
I got my movie one.
Okay,
I remembered my movie one, A Pink Panther.
All
of the Pink Panther movies, because they were the animated cartoon. I knew the cartoon before I knew of Clouseau movies. The Peter Sellers movies. So when they would have those at the beginning as a kid, because they would show them on like ABC Sunday Night Movie and stuff like that, that was just always like, oh, I know that as a cornerstone, something of going, brought my worlds together that I just thought was fantastic. I knew I had one and I just couldn't remember.
That's a great shout. As soon as you say it, you like Patrick and I's face was like, yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, absolutely. It's easy to go with the super iconic, for example, like Friends or The Sopranos, or for example, but I try to stay away from that a little bit to relative success, maybe, but let's see how it goes. I'd say maybe an honorable mention, True Detective Season 1. It was the best series of the 3, with by far the best opening credits as well. What else? I only watched the first season, but opening credits for Westworld were super impressive, I thought. But I bailed after the first season, so, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I did too, but I agree with you. The way that it morphed the being together from all the different liquids and solids and stuff, I totally with you.
And it was so creepy at the same time. It was really weird. But I think when it comes to TV, my favorite would be Mad Men.
Yep.
I would never skip that intro because I thought every time it's not too long. To me, that's very important, but perfection. What else? Oh, of course. Speaking of iconic, Game of Thrones, they would change the opening credits depending on where the action took place.
And then I liked what they did with House of Dragon, because House of Dragon built off of what they did in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Not as good, but I thought it was a good homage to what the first thing did.
Yeah, it was a good idea to stay in the same type of visuals. Yeah, that's true.
Can I add one that I don't like?
Yeah, please. Definitely.
And this is the reference to the show, because every episode where you have us on, this show comes up, and it's a brilliant show. I do not like the opening song to Slow Horses. That Mick Jagger song is god-awful. I'm sorry. Thank goodness that Apple TV goes, hey, do you want to skip this? Yes, I do.
I do.
Oh, boy. Oh, brutal.
That that might prove your point because, I mean, as much as I love the show, I don't remember the opening credits at all.
It's the song. I can't listen. It's Mick Jagger, right? He's iconic. He has nothing to prove to me or anyone else. But that song is dreadful. And I can't. It is like 45 seconds long, I think. Maybe it just feels that long. Maybe it's 10 seconds and I just hate it. But I just go, it's like a little skip thing comes. Yes, I do. Get rid of it. So, but I love the show. And obviously, there's our reference today.
That's awesome.
Well, see, and I didn't know if you guys, because to me, the 70s was the hallmark of when a lot of these really, really cool ones came out. Because did you guys ever see $6 Million Man?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Of course.
Okay, Steve Austin, a man barely. I mean, those weren't credits. Those were like nuggets within of themselves. And Wonder Woman, that song for the Linda Carter was fantastic.
The A-Team.
Granted, this is late A-Team. Exactly. So much of that stuff was so iconic back in the day, and they just don't do that anymore. Back in my day, they had good openings.
Well, I'm just looking at, there's no clouds to yell at. Sorry, I'm looking. It's nighttime here now.
Right, yes, exactly.
So I have a few opening credits for movies. Maybe that will, jog your memory. One that was awesome, Seven, with 9 Inch Nails.
I don't remember that. That was my wife and our second date.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to like hold hands and stuff afterwards, and I was like, "Get off of me!"
She's like, "I brought you a present." You're like, "I don't know boxes."
Yeah, no.
Another one, Fight Club. Great opening credits. What else? Watchmen.
Oh yes, with the times they are changing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the theatrical cut of that movie was but the director's cut was excellent. What else? We could probably put them all in one same file. But Casino Royale in 2006, the first Daniel Craig movie, the opening credits were just similar enough to the other Bond movies, but still quite unique that to me, they stand out.
It's the only movie I thought of, the only and franchise, I guess, was Bond. And I'll make the connection to what you said, Woody, about the Doctor Who. Right? When the Eccleston series started again in 2005, the opening it was just familiar enough, but it was obviously more modern at the time. And absolutely, Casino Royale, I think now that you say that, I remember that whole opening. And that's really well done.
Yeah, see, I skipped over all of the Bond ones because to me, I like them all. No, it wasn't, they was trying to come up with singular examples. For Your Eyes Only, I just happened to watch the other day, and that one, they weren't anticipating high resolution. Let me put it that way. You see a lot more in that opening now than you could back in the day.
Okay, I don't want to turn it into like a dirty old man talking, but Sheena Easton was easy on the eyes as well. Gotta say.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. And my last, I have a bunch, but I'll keep it short. We talked about Guy Ritchie on the last episode. I rewatched Snatch. Oh. And the opening credits are awesome.
Yeah.
I just had to mention that. Okay, so I guess that's it. Did you guys have any other, titles coming to mind? Or
I think the iconic ones, like in the UK, Match of the Day. The song.
Yes.
But that's kind of the equivalent to the Hockey Night in Canada theme, for us. And, I hate to say bumpers, but like even Sports Center on ESPN in the States, you hear that and you know immediately what's happening. I don't necessarily know if it's a great opening. It's just that a lot of times for me, the connection is the audio, like is the song or the jingle or what have you. So things like that as soon as you hear it, it's iconic enough that you go, it's this or that. It's kind of usually what wins me over.
When you think about it, it doesn't even need to be good. It just has to be recognizable and easy to remember,
Absolutely.
So there you go. All right. So yeah, that's 1 hour. We can call it, I think. All right. So, okay. Thank you guys for your time. So where can we reach you online? Woody, what about you?
You guys can find me at The Wooden Chef on Instagram. That's the best place to find me. I've been eating a lot of great food lately and posting pictures, and I've actually am cooking a dinner here in a few weeks, so I will be making my own stuff to post up there to show y'all.
Nice. And also, speaking of restaurants and stuff, you went to Canada recently, and I will find a time so that we can talk about it on the next episode if you want.
Sure.
All right. And also, I think you were there when I mentioned it, but I want to do a travel focused episode at some point, and I want you guys there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you about your hometown. That's great.
Yeah, just in case there's something I don't know about.
Right.
So yeah, Mike, where can we find you online?
You can find me. I'm not a terribly interesting follow. I know I always don't sell myself very well on this. But on Twitter, I'm Mr. D/MRDSCLASS. And on Instagram, I am Pickies with Filters, PICIES with filters, because that's what they are, pictures with filters.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys again. It was great. I had a great time. I hope you did as well.
Of course.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great talking. I love talking with you guys about stuff like this. So
awesome.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you everyone for listening. We will catch you on the next one. Thanks.